Another big storm is coming to the United States over the next few days, and this will bring even more significant severe weather to parts of the country, including the return of more damaging winds, large to very large hail, and a few tornadoes. And then once we go into next week, we have a very strange weather pattern that'll be coming to the country. So in today's forecast, we are going to break down exactly what you need to know about the weather that'll be impacting the United States over the next 7 days. And we'll begin with what's happening across the country today, and we've had a lot of severe weather just over the last 72 hours, including our 2 lines of thunderstorms that rolled across both Texas and as well as the Mississippi River Valley yesterday, bringing some damaging winds, even some large hail, and a couple of tornadoes stretching from Texas back up into Illinois and Indiana. The good news is that a lot of this has been weakening over the last several hours, and we are not expecting this to really re-intensify into much today. However, new storms will spark off throughout the afternoon and evening hours, anywhere from the Ohio Valley in the Northeast all the way back down into the Southern Plains, where additional severe storms are possible today. And then tomorrow we are talking about almost the same exact area, and then by the time we go into Saturday, there will even be a threat of a little bit of severe weather, I think, back over on the East Coast, which will be something to keep an eye on. Over the last 48 hours, we've had some really big severe weather events, and on Tuesday we had one of the more significant wind threats that we've had all year long, with over 600 wind reports stretching from Missouri all the way back into the Northeast. The Ohio Valley is where we actually had an almost derecho back over in Indiana, Ohio, and Pennsylvania. On the old derecho classification scale, this actually would have been classified as a derecho. However, we did not have enough 75-mile-per-hour plus wind reports in this area to classify this as a derecho. So generally speaking, this was just a very intense mesoscale convective system that brought a lot of wind damage, in addition to over 500,000 customers without power in Pennsylvania just on Tuesday alone. In addition to that, a few tornadoes were confirmed back over in Missouri. And then yesterday, we had about 4 tornado reports, one of which was over in Illinois, and then we also had 3 landspout reports back over near Lubbock, Texas. But generally speaking, yesterday was a pretty average day of severe weather. We had some hail, we had some wind. Our 10% hatch tornado risk never did pan out because of the line of storms that rolled through during the morning, and that was just basically too powerful for the discrete supercells to fire off in the afternoon. Now let's talk more about the severe weather potential over the next few days, and we'll begin with today, which is tossing trampolines on Tall Trees Thursday. We have 2 slight risks of severe weather in place, one of which is back over near Lake Erie into the Tennessee and Ohio valleys, and then our other one is in the Southern Plains and into the Deep South, which is where we are expecting at least a round or 2 of severe storms throughout the daytime hours today and perhaps even into the evening tonight. Damaging winds is the main concern in both of these regions. In addition to that, there could be some large hail. Wouldn't rule out a couple of storms producing upwards of 2 to 2.5 inch diameter hail back over in Oklahoma and Texas. We originally had a hatched area for hail in our outlook for today, yesterday in our outlook, but they have removed that since then. Even then, I still think there's a chance that we could see some very large hail if any discrete cells are able to fire off very late this afternoon into the evening hours. Our tornado risk is very low across the board. They have actually shifted our tornado threat, which I agree with, back over into Ohio, Kentucky, even a little sliver of Tennessee, West Virginia, and Pennsylvania, where a tornado or 2 are going to be a possibility this afternoon. So definitely make sure that you're staying weather aware and have ways to receive warnings. I don't know if this is going to be enough for a live stream today, but if we end up getting a tornado warning and it looks concerning, there's a chance that we could go live. So make sure you are subscribed to the channel and click the bell icon so you're notified if we do go live. And then as we go into Friday, we have another large area that we are watching for some isolated to widely scattered severe weather stretching from New York all the way back into the Southern Plains, where more damaging winds, large hail, and an isolated tornado threat will exist. Right now, our wind threat is mainly from Lake Erie back into Texas. Some large to very large hail will be possible in Texas. I do think in a future outlook, we will see a hatched area for very large hail, basically meaning that we could see a couple hailstorms that do produce hail up to the size of apples. So something to keep an eye on if you're back over near the Austin or San Antonio areas of Texas or some of the suburbs that surround those areas. This is actually surprising, but we do not have any tornado risk outlook right now for Friday, which is something we've not seen in over a week now. So this is really good news. However, I still do think an isolated tornado is possible back over in Texas. If we are able to get a storm near an outflow boundary and maybe just enough wind shear, I think we'll be available for maybe a brief tornado. I don't think we're talking about anything crazy though on Friday, just something to keep an eye on. Our tornado threat for today will be mostly geared towards the afternoon hours. We will have significant tornado parameter values increasing back over in Ohio and Pennsylvania a little after 3 to 4 o'clock this afternoon, and this should lead to at least an isolated chance for a tornado or 2. There's even some spots in northwest Pennsylvania that get upwards of 3 to 4 on our STP values, which basically means that we will at least have an elevated potential for a tornado or 2 in this region. So definitely make sure that you're staying weather aware. I think if we do have a tornado anywhere today, it will probably be in eastern eastern Ohio or in western Pennsylvania sometime between about 3 to about 7 o'clock. So make sure that you have multiple ways to receive alerts and a tornado action plan ready to go. Notice that we even have some low values all the way back over into the deep south, which is also an area that I would not rule out an isolated spin up or a brief tornado. I just think generally it is a very low risk, mainly because we're not going to really have the right storm mode for tornadoes down there. We could also have a brief spin up somewhere in Tennessee or Kentucky, but I think the odds of us seeing a tornado that far down to the south are relatively low for today. So here's the timing for severe weather today. We'll have some scattered showers and isolated thunderstorms out there this morning. By around lunchtime, a few more storms will form in southern Indiana and Kentucky, where damaging winds will begin to become a threat with a little bit of large hail. I don't really think our tornado threat will ramp up until about 3 to 4 o'clock, mainly back up into parts of Ohio. Could still see a brief spin up though somewhere over in Kentucky and Tennessee. This is all going to be spiraling around our low pressure system. So overall, this is an environment where we could see a spin up, but I do think the storms are not going to be that tall, which means I don't think they're really going to be that mature today. But I do think any low top supercells that we have today could produce a spin up tornado or two. By around 6 to 7 o'clock, these storms are moving across Pennsylvania, eastern Ohio, and West Virginia. And then by around 8 to 9 o'clock, there could be a few more storms left over behind our other line of storms. But I think generally these will only be producing very isolated hail and wind, even if we see severe weather behind our initial line of storms. And then as we go into Friday, things do get a little bit quieter for the morning, but I do think by the afternoon, another line of storms is possible near the Mississippi River Valley from whatever's left from our line of storms in the southern plains, which I will show you in just a moment. And then by Friday afternoon and into the evening, damaging winds and as well as large hail will be possible across the Ohio Valley, Tennessee Valley, and back into the Dixie Alley. And then back over into the Northeast, we are expecting a few severe storms later this afternoon into the evening, mainly across parts of western New York, Pennsylvania, West Virginia, where there will be some damaging winds. This is right around 7 to 8 o'clock. Notice an intense line of storms moving through the Buffalo area. Damaging winds will be the main concern. I don't think this is going to make it very far to the east, so if you're back over in eastern New York or eastern Pennsylvania, you could have some passing showers and isolated thunderstorms tonight, but nothing significant is expected. And then as we go into Friday, things look not too shabby. A couple more pop-up showers and thunderstorms are possible, which could lead to some localized hail and wind, but no tornado risk is going to be associated with this activity, at least from what we're seeing as of now. Now, I do think the severe weather potential in the southern plains is fairly interesting today. So we are going to have multiple rounds of severe storms here in the southern plains. In Louisiana, we could have some pop-up showers and thunderstorms that produce some large hail and damaging winds throughout the afternoon, mainly across the deep south, but primarily in Louisiana. By late this afternoon into the very early evening hours, we could have enough forcing to produce maybe a few supercells back over south of Dallas-Fort Worth, mainly around Waco, back into Mexico, where there could be some very large hail and perhaps some damaging winds. Very, very, very low tornado risk out of anything there. And then eventually by late this evening, a mesoscale convective system is going to try to erupt back over in southwestern Oklahoma and even in North Texas. And this will really happen around or just after midnight tonight, where significant damaging winds, some large hail, and a very low tornado risk would exist out of something like this that develops. And with a line of storms, this could easily produce at least an isolated tornado somewhere. So just something to keep an eye on. There's no tornado risk outline as of right now, but if this is a bit more organized than what the HRRR model is showing, we definitely could see an isolated tornado. So something to keep an eye on. And then as we go into Friday, that would move towards the Mississippi River Valley, producing some damaging winds and also a low tornado risk. And honestly, on Friday, it looks very, very, very stormy across the southern plains and as well as near the Gulf Coast. We could have a bunch of supercells out here, mainly producing damaging winds and hail. Due to the lack of wind shear, I don't think we're going to see much of a tornado risk, but I wouldn't rule out an isolated tornado across parts of Texas or extreme southwestern Louisiana on Friday. Now, after this week's storms, the weather pattern is going to get very, very, very weird. We are going to go from troughs ejecting over the Rockies to a very weird weather pattern. By Monday, we are going to have an omega block pattern where a low pressure system is located back over the Rockies, another low pressure system is located back over in the Ohio Valley, and then right smack dab in the middle of that is our omega block. This is what we call an omega block weather pattern, and essentially what we have here is a high pressure system right in the middle with two low pressure systems on each side. And what this will allow for is an increased amount of cooler weather and as well as a little bit more rain along the East Coast, but this could also fuel a potential for at least some severe weather in the high plains as we go into the early to mid portion of next week. And if this trough can eject over the Rockies, I wouldn't be surprised with a tornado risk or even just in general a severe weather risk existing as we go into Tuesday and Wednesday back over in the central and southern plains. So something to keep an eye on. But with this weather pattern, it's actually going to bring, I think, a quieter weather pattern by the end of this upcoming week and then eventually into next weekend. So I don't think we're going to be talking about as many significant storm systems in the near future, at least ones that are organized, which means any severe weather that we are talking about here over the next 7 days or so should be a bit more distant disorganized, not nearly as much relevant to our synoptic weather pattern where we have large low pressure systems that are ejecting over the Rocky Mountains. So as we go into the end of this week into the weekend, that low pressure system that's bringing severe weather today and tomorrow will move all the way back up into Canada. A little bit of isolated severe weather possible in the Ohio Valley and East Coast on Saturday. We'll talk more about that in tomorrow's video. And then eventually, as we go into Sunday, Monday, into Tuesday, that low pressure system will spin, bringing more rain to the East Coast and perhaps a little bit of severe weather Monday and Tuesday back over in the southern plains, where there could be some damaging winds and maybe a low tornado risk. And then eventually by Wednesday and Thursday, we are talking about kind of a messy weather pattern where we're really talking mostly about mesoscale features that'll be bringing any potential for severe weather, which is very similar to what we just saw a few days ago with our Texas severe weather events that brought even a few big tornadoes back over in West Texas. And thank you for watching today's forecast. If you are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe down below and click the bell icon so you're notified if we do go live later today.